Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So today we will be covering a rural community immigration pilot. So we will be talking in detail about this specific pathway because for a lot of people, this might be the only PR option available. So we will be talking about which are the participating communities, the eligibility requirements from the federal requirements and the community requirements, the job offer details, employer designation, and what is the employer role in all of this, what is the application process for PR, and then we'll talk about the community specific criteria for Ontario communities. So there are 5 Ontario communities which are participating. So I'm going to be talking about all 5 of them. What are their scoring system and what are the priority sector? And in the very end, I will be giving you key takeaways and basically summarize the whole thing and tell you some other stuff why this makes a really good stream. So watch it till the very end. So before that, here's a disclaimer. So this is only for informational purposes, should not be construed as legal advice. Things change so frequently. And if you want one, reach out to the official source and maybe book a consultation with a licensed immigration practitioner like myself. And then we can look into the details of your specific situation and guide you what would be a good option for you, right? And also, let me introduce myself. I'm DIL Sandhu, and I'm a CICC licensed immigration consultant based out of Toronto, Canada. And without any further ado, let's dive right into today's discussion. So let's first look into the participating communities, right? So there are 14 participating communities which are participating in the rural community. There's also a Francophone community as well. So there are, I think, a couple of them there as well. But today's presentation and information session is based on the rural participating communities. So on the right side, I basically try to create like a summary of the whole thing, right? So there are 2 kinds of requirements you have to meet. So there are federal eligibility requirements because this is a federal program, which means like Canadian Experience Class, Federal Skilled Worker Program, Atlantic Immigration Program. So this is not a provincial program, it's a federal program. So there are federal eligibility requirements, and then there are community eligibility requirements. So we'll talk about both of them in very detail. So now let's look into the eligibility. So what is the first important thing you need to? First, you need a valid job offer from a designated employer in the community. So what is a designated employer? So designated is any employer which have met certain criteria in order to become designated. So any employer can become designated if they meet certain requirements. So we'll discuss that as well. And you must have at least 1 year of related work experience in the past 3 years related to the job, right? So if you are getting a job offer in some kind of a knock, right, then you need to have a similarly basically a 1 year of related work experience, right, in the last 3 years. So then there are language tests. So there are 5 language tests eligible. We'll discuss that. So for each kind of job offer, the requirements for the language proficiency change. So we'll discuss that. Now, if you see here, so as far as the education is concerned, all you need is a Canadian secondary school or higher, or its equivalent if you have done that from outside of Canada. So you need an ECA. ECA is nothing but Education Credential Assessment. For example, there are organizations such as WES, IQAS, and many others who can, basically look at your credentials and basically let you know what is that equivalent to a Canadian credential. Then there are funds required unless exempted. And then you need to show that you have intention to reside in the designated community. Very, very important, right? So as far as the work experience is concerned, there is also an exemption for certain international students who have graduated from that specific community. And if you look at the job offer, if the job offer is in tier 0 or 1, then the work experience required has to be in tier 0, 1, 2, or 3. If it's tier 2, it has to be in 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. And if it's tier 3 or 4, then the work experience has to be in tier 2, 3, or 4. And if it's in tier 5, then it has to be exact same knock code. So you cannot have something related. So the only exception is for the knock 33101 and 44101 if you have a job offer in that. But if you are like a nurse, registered nurse, like which is I think 31301, that experience can still count. So we'll talk that also a little bit later as well. So now let's look into the work experience exemption. So you don't need to meet the work experience requirement if you're an international student who have graduated from a public post-secondary school in the community with an eligible credential of 2 years or longer, right? So what you should have done, you should have studied full-time for the entire program. So it can't be like, part-time maybe in the last semester. That could possibly be not accepted. Got your credential not more than 18 months before applying for permanent residency. So the day you're going to be submitting your PR application, you have to look backwards 18 months. Did you complete your credential within the last 18 months? So that will be your eligibility. And you were in the community for at least 18 of the last 24 months while you were studying. And if you have a master's degree or higher that took less than 2 years to complete and you studied full-time for your entire duration, and you must have got that degree within the same criteria, which is 18 months before applying for PR, and were in the community for the length of your studies. So what is an eligible credential? It means a degree, diploma, or certificate, or apprenticeship credential from a publicly funded post-secondary institution in the recommending community, right? So it is important also to understand it has to be in the recommending community. You can't have, for example, let's say you studied from North Bay, but now you're applying for Timmins. No, so then you are not in the same community, right? So what are the language requirements, right? So it depends upon the job offer. If your job offer is in tier 0 or 1, right, the highest tier, so then it's CLB level 6. If it's tier 2 or 3, it's CLB 5. If it's tier 4 and 5, it's CLB 4, right? So the language tests are both English and the French language tests are valid. So for English is CELPIP, it's IELTS General and PTE Core, and for French is TEF Canada and TCF Canada. So you can look at the language level for each of these tests. So how much you need to score. The scores are pretty low. I think if you have graduated from Canada, even getting CLB 6 wouldn't be that hard at all. Now, funds required. Now, first of all, the funds are not required if you're already employed in Canada. So that's number one. So that's get it out of the way. But if you are applying from outside Canada, right, or if you are no longer currently employed, right, in that case, you have to show funds. It is based on the number of family members. If you're alone, then it's 7,963. If you're a family of two, then 9,692, and so on, right? Now, let's look at the most important part, which is the job offer. Now, job offer is a must, right? It's a job offer stream. Without job offer, there is no chance, right? So this job offer must be a genuine job offer from a designated employer for a non-seasonal full-time work for an indeterminate period. Essentially, what is full-time? Full-time means at least 30 hours per week, right? And it has to be permanent full-time job. So that's pretty much what it says. For employment in a designated community, in which at least 70% of the work is to be performed within the community. So 75% of the work, like 3/4 of the work, has to be performed in the community. For employment, the applicant is qualified to perform as per NOC employment requirements. If you go to any NOC, for example, you will see that they will have a lead statement, they will have a list of job titles, then they will have main duties, and below that, generally, they will have employment requirements. So for any job offer, you need to make sure that you are meeting the employment requirements. So that's what it is. And I think we have already mentioned the table on the right side. If you are tier 0, 1, so your work experience can be tier 0, 1, 2, or 3. Okay. Now let's come to the employer designation. Now, to be designated, right? So the employer must have been, there's some criteria for employer. So for example, let's say you go into a community, let's say Timmins or Thunder Bay, and your employer is no longer designated, right? But they may become designated, right? So it's not like something which is, they cannot become designated. So there is certain criteria. So I'm just going to put a few of the things here. So there might be detail which the employer need to know. So they must have been operating continuously for at least 2 years in a participating community. There might be some exceptions to that. Must be in a good standing and comply with the employment standards occupation, and do business in at least one priority occupation that the community has identified. So the way it works is that communities have identified their priority sector, right? And they've also identified the priority occupation. So both of them things has to be kind of identified. And they must do at least 75% of the business within that community, right? It just can't be like somebody doing the outside the boundaries of that particular community, not in violation of the employer compliance regime. So what they do is that the employer has to do the free onboarding training. That's actually a really good thing, because now the employer is totally educated about how they can support their employee with this whole PR process, because they will have to send the application for recommendation. So it's good that they already have like an onboarding training. And anyways, the recommendation which is sent to the EDO, the Economic Development Organization of the community, has to be sent by the employer itself. And they complete the free intercultural competency training and agree to support the settlement of newcomers and their families. So they have to support them. So which means that it's going to be really good for the candidate, right? So that they're getting all the help it needs in order for them to become permanent residents. So now, I've already alluded to it earlier, but let's look into this. Who submits the recommendation to the community? So it is the designated employer and not you. So you are not the one who will be submitting the application for, the certificate of recommendation or recommendation certificate. So the application requires employer to show that they have been able to they haven't been able to fill the job with someone locally, show that the job offer meets the pilot requirement. So this pilot is for 5 years, and confirm that the candidate meets all the requirements of the pilot, and commit to connecting your candidate with employment for the immigrant settlement services in your community. Now, if the community approves, right, that recommendation application which was submitted by the employer, so they will send the recommendation certificate to the candidate. Now, how to apply, right? So the good part is that after you get the recommendation certificate, you will be using the permanent residence portal. So you will create an account for that, and you basically, most of the application would be digital. So most of the forms are digital, but then there are other PDF forms as well, right? So on the right, you can see that there is like, generic application form, IMM 0008, and then you have Schedule A, additional family information, supplementary information, and all. And then there's some PDF forms as well. So you will also be uploading the document checklist and things like that, plus Schedule 1, offer of employment, and those kind of things. And there are some forms which have to be signed as well, which would be like a statutory declaration for common law partner, or a separation declaration for minors traveling to Canada. But the details are on the website. I will also put that in the description, and along with other information as well. If you want to book consultation, that information is also going to be there. Yeah, so before I forget, make sure you do like and subscribe to the channel if you find this video useful, right? And share with anyone who might benefit from this. Okay, and the third thing you have is you pay the application fee online and include the receipt with your application, and you submit the completed application. Okay. Now, I'm not going to be discussing about every single community because all the information is already kind of available on the website itself, but I will talk about some of these communities, all the communities basically in Ontario. And I've seen that at the time of recording this video, right, Sudbury is still kind of working their things out. Similarly, I think it was North Bay as well, right? So they're still kind of fixing some of the things, but we will still talk about all of the 5 kind of communities. And how you can find this information, let me just show the screen as well. So if you go to the website itself, so you will have let's say a rural community. You will choose one of them. So let's say you say Sudbury, and then you continue, and then if you open it up here, so they were there. It will say that what they're trying to do. So they're saying, we are still not accepting applications, and it's still in the development phase, right? But then if you look into Timmins, they have already kind of have everything in place also, right? So I'm going to start with Timmins itself, and then they have all the details of everything, what the candidate steps are, all the things on the website itself, right? Okay, so let's go into each one of them. So now, as I mentioned, so they have to, every community has identified certain priority sectors, and they have priority occupations, right? So first, the priority sectors. So we have in Timmins is health, education, social, community, and government services, trades, and transport. natural resources and agriculture, business, finance, and administration. And their priority occupations are from financial advisors, accounting technicians, and bookkeepers, administrative officers. And many of these, like, for example, even licensed practical nurses, but not registered nurses as well, okay? Nurse aides, right? Elementary school and kindergarten teachers, ECAs and ECEs, home sport workers, welders, transport truck drivers are also there, and construction trade helpers and laborers. So a lot of tier 4, tier 5 are also there, which is a really good news, right? Because this program is open not only to tier 0, 1, 2, 3, like in express entry, but also to tier 4 and tier 5. So what are the typical steps, right? So the first is that, you must meet the federal eligibility requirements. We have already discussed. Then you must have a job offer from a designated employer. So on their website, they have a list of all the designated employers. So this was updated on May 9th, 2025, but new updations would come. So always check that which are the new designated employers getting added, and you can always apply to them and basically try to get the job offer, okay? So then get a community recommendation. So this is something which you will not do, but you will submit any documents the employer need from you, and the employer will submit that application, and there will be checklists. And then the applications are ranked using a point-based system. What I haven't seen is that every community is basically have a 50 points kind of community grade, right? And that particular, and if you're selected within the 6 months grade, otherwise that application stays in the pool for 6 months, and I think then they probably get rid of that or whatever. And then if they get the community recommendation, they will apply for the permanent residence, right? And then they settle, and they can also apply for open work permit if needed while their PR application is in process. So this can happen in multiple scenarios. Let's say if you're outside of Canada, of course, you need work permit to come and work in that community. If you're within Canada and your status is kind of expired, or or the work permit is expiring, in those cases, it will be a good idea to get the work permit as well, or you're on maintained status or any of those kind of things. So it will be helpful for you that then you can work. So as it specifically mentions the community grid. So what happens is that you will be ranked on the community scoring grid, right? If your score is minimum 50, then only you will be eligible for recommendation. And with the minimum of 10 score for each eligibility factor. So they have a sub-segments, right? For example, the total of 50 points you need, a bare minimum, right? But for each section, so there are sections for job offer, there are sections for work experience, there's section for language and education and intent to reside. So total for each section, eligibility factors. So there are 5 eligibility factors. Each eligibility factor is of 25 points. And out of those 25 points, you must have a minimum of 10 points in order for the eligibility. So eligibility doesn't mean that you still will be getting the recommendation, but at least you could qualify. So that's what it means. Now, if you look at the Thunder Bay, here the priority occupations sectors are business, finance, administration, health occupations, education, law, community and government services, sales and services, which is great, trade, transport, and equipment operation or other related fields. So again, they have a list of priority occupation from financial advisors, administrative assistants. So even general office support workers, nurses, licensed practical nurses, registered nurses, ECAs, cooks. Cooks is also here, right, which is great. Light duty cleaners are there. Construction trade helpers are there as well. And also food service supervisors and retail sales supervisors. So those are good news as well. Again, very similar. So for each of the factors, so there are 25 points and you need to get minimum 10 points and total 50 points in order to be eligible. So this is some of the screenshots available, and there's a huge list of designated employers in Thunder Bay, which is a great news. And if you see that there are most of them in black, some of them in red, which means the red basically indicate that right now they are not hiring. Okay. So the Thunder Bay breakdown is that 15% is in business, 20% of the quota will go to the health occupations, 12% will be to education law, 15% to sales and service, 15% to trades and transport, and 10% allowance to adjustment of the bulk. So what is expected out of the candidate? Same, very much same to the Timmins. So that's why I started with Timmins, because their website was quite comprehensive. So same federal eligibility criteria, and then a job offer from a designated employer, and the employer will then submit your your application and supporting documents on the behalf to the CEDC. What is CEDC? Basically, it says that Community Economic Development Commission. So you can say Economic Development Organization, right? So it's pretty much what they will have. Similarly, Sudbury, I've already told you that they're still in the the development stage, so they're still not accepting applications. So I didn't find much details there. Now, if you look at the North Bay, here the priority sector are again business, finance, administration, health, education, sales, and service transport. And their occupations, priority occupations include financial auditors and accountants, administrative assistants. So they have also human resources professional as well, ECEs, pharmacy assistants, nurse aides, shippers and receivers, home support workers, corporate sales managers, hotel front desk clerks, machinists, electricians, carpenters, construction trade helpers, and laborers, which is pretty good, right? Again, here the list of designated employers, they have not have the list at the time of recording this video. When it will come, you can always check that. Again, so for most of the communities, they will have like intake periods. It's not going to be like, at any time they will accept the applications for recommendation from the employer. So there will be sometimes intake periods in which they will accept the application and then review the application, and then they will basically send the recommendations, right? So again, the recommendation application from the employer will include the language test score. Obviously, the employer will ask you to provide that, proof of education, intent to reside form filled by the candidate, offer of employment form, rural community immigration pilot schedule 1, proof of previous relevant work experience, so pay stubs, letter of employment, T4 slips, etc., copy of their legal status if they're already in Canada, and any other supporting documents. And now let's look at the Sault Ste. Marie. Here, the priority occupations are health, education, sales and service, trade and transport, manufacturing, right? So under health, they have like 4 occupations. Personal support worker is one of them. And then in education, you have early childhood educators, sales and service. If you see, there are food service supervisor, but they have specifically mentioned that this is cannot be those who are working in the fast food restaurants, right? It's only hotel and dine restaurants, right? So, and the cap is 10, so maximum of 2 recommendations per employer. So what would be a fast food example? Would be like all this McDonald's, A&W, pizza. So all of these, so that probably is not going to be included. Then you have guest service supervisor, security guard supervisor, production worker, and there are a couple of them in the trade transport as well. So transit operators, trade helpers, and laborers, which is pretty good as well, and many other technical occupations. And they have an annual cap. So if you see for the food service supervisor, 25 annual, not more than 2 per employer, and hotel and dining restaurants only. Similarly, for guest service supervisor, there are 10, and it will be only for hotels, and security guard supervisor, they're 20 annually. And the last update they have done is that they have already reached the cap for dine-in restaurant and will not be able to designate any requests submitted after May 8th, 2025. So their intake periods, these are the intake periods. And so their list of designated employers, obviously they have Algoma Tubes, and then there would be many others as well. So I'll just put a partial list of them here, right? And if you see extended care, it means obviously they might be hiring for personal support workers and things like that. So there are, and some of them also basically mentions that they're not currently hiring, right? So one thing you have to do is you have to really search about that particular employer. Who is the specific employer, to find out, to reach out to them and basically apply for those jobs. Now, what are the key takeaways of this RCIP pathway? So first very important thing is that all tiers are eligible. So from tier 0 to tier 5. So a lot of people, they are struggling with express entry, PNPs are not coming. Like it's pretty, a bloodbath right now. 2025 has been really bad in terms of immigration. So this is a ray of hope, even though the quota is not very high for even this stream, but still, I mean, this is a great opportunity in general. So low education requirements, just high school diploma, low language requirements, CLB 4 or 5 or 6, depending on the job offer. It's an employer-driven program, right? So it requires a job offer from a designated employer, and the employer is the one who is going to be submitting the application. And dual eligibility. So there are federal requirements and the community requirements, right? So you have to check both of them. So open to candidates both inside and outside Canada. So great for settlement in small communities, perfect for for those who seeking a quieter lifestyle. Strong local support. So even the employer is kind of aware of all the things they need to do. So they will be much more hands-on this time, and they will be helping with like settlement and integration as well. And there's a work permit option as well. So you can always apply for kind of a work permit. I wouldn't say, I think I should not use this word bridging open work permit, but you can apply for a work permit. So this option is available for outside candidates and also for inside candidates as well while the PR application is getting processed. So I think you will get it for basically a work permit, I think, which allows you to work for that specific employer in that specific community, right? So, and even your spouse might get, or common law partner might also get the work permit for that specific location for the community for probably 2 years. So this is it from my side. I hope you like this video. Please do subscribe to the channel and do let me know if there's something else can be done and you want some other video on any specific immigration PR pathway or anything else I could help you with. So wish you good luck and thank you for watching.